Welcome back to the Applied Change Management podcast. And if you're new, thanks for joining us. I'm Rose. I've got a decade of experience in change management, the corporate world, and now I run Implementation Works Limited. We're a change management business with a modern approach to change, and we call it Applied Change Management. Whether you're new to change management and you'd like a clear and effective approach, a change lead with several projects to manage, a change consultant who's squeezed for time and resources, or a project manager interested in the other side of the coin, this podcast is for you. Let me walk you through applied change management, why it works, and how you can use it to get to business as usual faster. We've been away strategizing the best way to provide you with all this information, and this week we're starting with a topic that's increasingly relevant: the death of traditional change management, the pitfalls, limitations, and an introduction to applied change management and the solutions we think it brings. Traditional change management isn't a new concept. Now, I'm assuming since you're listening to this, you've got an idea of what it is and why it's needed. But just in case, and to make sure that we're speaking from the same perspective, let me break down what I mean by traditional change management. Traditional change management is an approach to support the people side of change. It sits alongside project management when an organization, department, or group is changing something in the way they work. It could be introducing a new tool, digitizing a system, or changing the way that a process is carried out. There are several well-known approaches to traditional change management. From my experience, the most well-known of these approaches are ProSci, Kotter, the Burke-Litwin model, Lewin, Kubler-Ross, McKinsey 7S, and APMG. There's a myriad of different approaches out there. These traditional change management approaches were initiated several decades ago when project management styles were quite different and there were fewer changes in organizations, departments, and groups, with a lot more time between each change. Although there are plenty of useful tools in the traditional approaches, aligning them with the fast-paced multi-change programs that organizations are rolling out on a regular basis today is really challenging. After a decade of supporting various change efforts, I can see there are clearly limitations to traditional change management. And that's because traditional change management was generally created when the project approaches tended to be waterfall approaches. For those of you who might not be familiar with that, it means that we knew exactly what the change was going to be and what the end result was going to be, and every step of how we'd get there along the way. A newer approach to project management is agile project management, which tends to be used when the end result really isn't entirely clear, like when a new software is developed or an organization's bringing in a new digital tool where they know the broad strokes of what the tool can do, but it's not completely clear how it'll work within the organization implementing it. The International Journal of Trends in Scientific Research and Development showed adoption of agile methodologies and change agile leadership development as key challenges in an article named Global Trends in Change Management, Insights and Key Takeaways for 2025. Because change management sits alongside project management, it needs to flex to be able to best support the end users, especially as project management changes from the hierarchical waterfall approach to agile and then others as well. When I look at most projects being implemented today, change leads often still try to adapt the traditional change approach to different non-waterfall project methods. The Capability for Change Survey 2024, published in ResearchGate, states that the top barrier for change is that change management activities are not understood. It says lack of understanding of change management activities scored 64%. When there's confusion about what change management involves or its benefits, it becomes harder for others to support it. If after 20 years of traditional methods, leadership is still not understanding change management activities and thereby not seeing the value in it, it's time to change our approach to something which suits our audience better. Change managers love change management and spend time speaking with people about change management theory. It's also a fairly standard approach to traditional change management, explaining to people how they're likely to be affected by changes that are coming. Traditional change management approaches, like ProSci and Kotter, actually suggest sharing change management theory with them. ProSci suggests sharing the ADCOM model directly to stakeholders to give people a roadmap to their personal journey through change. Kotter's 8 steps suggests sharing the 8 steps with staff to be transparent on how change will happen. It can be effective, especially when coaching leaders and explaining why we need change management, but it really doesn't bring much value to the largest group of people, the impacted group. The impacted group are the people who are going to be working in the new way, using the new processes or system. This group of people is very unlikely to be interested in the theory of change or the background of it. And can you imagine how irritated they're going to be if this gets done to them every single time a change is carried out in the organisation? Let's stop insisting on sharing information they didn't ask for. The 10% who are truly interested in change management theory will find you and ask. I promise. As part of traditional change management, I also see change managers early on in their career following the methods they've learned without any adjustment, using all the activities on the list from the method, no matter what the change is. Like insisting on sharing theory, this is unnecessary and will delay you in the implementation of the change, which is your role to deliver swiftly and effectively. Organisations are continually making changes, whether it's bringing in a new digital tool, changing a process, or reorganising departments. That means that change managers need to deliver more and faster without reducing the quality of our work. Applied change management helps you do exactly that. Traditional change management, although valuable, is not in itself particularly agile or flexible and doesn't align naturally with the new project management methods like Agile, which is why I came up with applied change management. With applied change management, we start with the core change, how it affects people on a practical level, and then every single communication and activity is solely focused on how to ensure successful implementation of that change. Now, we do that by asking the right questions along the way and using specific activities. When you ask applied and effective questions at the right time, you not only get the core information on the change, but you get the right information to speak effectively with line managers, senior leaders, and change sponsors. It supports you through all types of change, and it can sit alongside any project approach, including Agile, without needing to change the basic approach, because it's fully applied to the change from the start. Let's be clear, applied change management still utilises change management's universal basis. We don't need to reinvent the wheel. The broad phases of change are still present. We still prepare for, implement, and sustain change. But we make everything applied to the core change by asking key questions at each phase and by streamlining our activities to, well, you guessed it, to be applied to the change as well. The description of applied change management is based on my background of 20 years in and around the healthcare sector, specifically my applied biomedical science degree. Every lecture and seminar taught me a skill specific to my role. It was applied to knowledge I needed, just as applied change management is to the organisation, the core change, and the impacted groups to get to business as usual quickly, effectively, and accurately. I've been using applied change management for years, and it's allowed me to be effective, to ensure happy clients, efficiently troubleshoot when needed, and support projects from mini changes affecting a couple dozen people in one department to changes affecting thousands across the world. It also allowed me to support multiple clients because of how efficient the approach is. If you set out all the stages of all the traditional methods, you'd get around 47 stages, each with their own activities. If you followed all 47 of the stages and did all the activities for your change project, there's no way you'd ever complete it, and your project lead would be pretty peeved. In applied change management, to decide which of the previously mentioned applied activity to use, we ask applied questions once the change has been identified. Now let's look at those questions a little bit closer. The questions you ask will determine if your approach is traditional or applied change management. What's your first port of call when you start planning a change strategy? Who do you speak to? And what questions do you ask them? Do you ask, who are our stakeholders? That's a good question, but it's also a typical traditional change management question that brings its own limitations. Working with the project team, this question will provide you with a list of people or roles. Great. But last time I asked this in a kickoff meeting for a project, I got over 50 roles and individuals listed, and it turned out a lot of the roles and individuals would not be especially involved in the change. An applied change manager would ask which specific people or roles will need to work differently and how. Last time I asked this in a kickoff meeting, the group went really quiet. Now, if the room goes really quiet on you, please don't worry. It's a really positive sign that they're taking the time to think about it. When my room went quiet, it was because they had to really think about the change coming up, making the responses applied to the change itself. It takes longer sometimes to get the answer to this question than the first one, but you will get a much more valuable response, which will support your approach much more efficiently. And instead of a list of possible stakeholders, you'll get a specific list of stakeholders. See the difference? Now, just a quick note here. The end part of the question, how will they work differently, very often can't be defined at the start of a kickoff meeting for a project. It might take a couple of weeks or months to truly define it. But if you've been brought on midway through a project to resolve chaos, as so many change managers are, then this applied question will get you to implementation a lot faster than asking who the stakeholders are. The applied change management approach also supports your effective alignment with the communications group. Change management supports the communication of the project, and often comms are combined into the change management role. Now, although that isn't ideal, it is how some projects are set up. But if you're working in both roles or as a pure change manager, we still need to ensure the communications are applied. A second, very typical traditional change management and comms question is, what is our communication plan? The comms plan is often used to map out milestones along the project journey. Traditionally, you can map change and communication activities along a timeline to show what's going to be happening at the various stages of the project. These traditional plans are used to share the overview with the leaders in the organisation and demonstrates what we're delivering, but will also often be seen during presentations to the end users as well. The high level works just fine for leaders, but individuals need more detail. Let's look at a question we could ask using the applied change management approach. Instead of, what's our communication plan, we could ask, what information do people need before they start this new way of working, and when do they need it? This will focus all the communication on the changes people will need to know about. I promise you'll still be able to share the high-level map you want for the leaders, but in addition to that, you can share a detailed plan of how people will get more information and when. And as the project continues, because you focused on the core of the changes and the impact it'll have on individuals and roles, the communication itself will be much more valuable. People will be aware of why the change is needed and how they will get there, and resistance will be reduced earlier because it will be applied to them. When people recognise themselves in communication, they actually pay attention to what's coming. They will read the newsletter because they know it's about them. They will watch the town hall because they know they'll get information valuable to them. In short, using applied change management questions for communication will make sure that the impacted group engages sooner, bringing the implementation closer. So we've covered a couple of applied questions to decide on our applied activities. Now let's look at finding a way to measure their effectiveness in an applied way. In the Capability for Change Survey 2024, listed as number 1 of the 6 core factors that they believe are failing to position change management as a valuable service was measuring benefits. Number 1. All projects promise benefits to get funding, and those benefits need to be proven at the end of the project. You can't measure benefits without measuring adoption in some way. So, measuring adoption in the right way to prove the efficiency of change management is vital to you, to me, to all change leads and to others as well. But it's not an easy question to answer. Often, we're asked to prove success based on the realization of high-level or vague benefits which were part of a business case created months or years before implementation. Traditional change management approaches I have seen ask the question at too high a level. How many people have adopted the new tool or system or change? That is not a strong enough question. Consider for a moment the mandatory implementation of a new tool or system that everyone has to use across the whole business. The measurement of adoption has often been, after people are trained, have they adopted the new tool or system? Well, of course they have. They have to. They've got no choice. There's no other system for them to use. Measuring whether or not they use it has zero value in change management metrics. So we need to identify what tasks people need to do differently and specifically how those tasks are going to be measured. A better applied change management question to answer is, what behaviour change is needed for business as usual, And how do we measure how many people are behaving in the way we need them to? This will allow us to measure if people are using the system correctly and not just logging on. That question is focused on the actual change that people have to make in their working lives, leading to stronger metrics that show people are following the process. The change metrics will be aligned to the project metrics and will answer the question whether change management truly supports the project or not. How do I know it works? I've been using applied change management for many years. Using this approach, I've supported small and large-scale changes. It enabled the implementation of a global change supporting 3,000 end users across the globe in multiple regions without a change agent network. Using applied change management, it supported streamlining a sales to delivery process of a large medtech company and reduced the time from sales to equipment delivery by 55% by focusing solely on the end users and their tasks and needs. By making the change applied to the end users and their needs, applied change management ensured a delivery of a 23 project change portfolio in a way that made sure they understood what was changing and how to prepare. If I can see such huge benefits of using applied change management at different levels, projects and stages, I know you'll see them too. So next time you plan a change, ask yourself these applied change management questions. Instead of asking who the stakeholders are, ask which specific people or roles will need to work differently and how. Instead of asking what our comms plan should be, ask what information do people need before they start this new way of working. And rather than asking how we will measure adoption through tool usage, ask what behaviour change is needed and how do we measure if people are behaving in the new way we need them to. Thanks for listening to the Applied Change Management podcast. Each week, I'll be giving more information on applied change management and discussing important topics within the sector. If you found this week's episode helpful, please follow, like, comment, and share it within your network. And come back to see me next week, where we'll be getting into why you might not be getting the leadership support you need and how applied change management can help. I'll be here every Thursday. I'll see you there.